All right, I think we're good, Michael. Go ahead.
All right, we'll call to order the Valley View Advisory Committee for May the 25th, 2022. Could you all silence your phones, any devices you have, so that we can have a peaceful meeting? And we'll stand for a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a roll call, Doreen, to see who's here with us.
Absolutely. Yes. Paduk,
Here.
Tui, D'Amico, Ledoux,
Here.
Wiley,
Here.
Kukis, Amo.
Here, fine, thanks. Good, thank you. I think I want to begin today. This should be a rather interesting kind of meeting, I hope, if I can make it work right. You know, I reflected on putting the work together for this agenda, on all the work that Jimmy O'Donnell did over the last 2 years, Legislator O'Donnell, trying to get this Valley View process up and running and best reflect the interest of all of us. And then we took it from there in January and began to sort it out and came up with a little more specific ideas that we wanted to hone in on what Jim had talked about. And I think we really have accomplished a lot, and probably all we need to accomplish at this moment, at least for the next step. And if I review the minutes that I've looked at and notes, I think the one thing that was put on our shoulders, or at least two things, and was that we wanted to reach out to Bob Gray from DPW and make sure that he would be available to work with us on assessing how we can make sure the sewer plant on the Valley View property could meet the needs that we developed. And I spoke to him right after the sewer meeting that Peter Toohey chaired, and he agreed wholeheartedly that just call on him and he'd work with us and help us put whatever we need together. He didn't think it'd be a problem because of the modular development of that plant, but he said he's certainly on board, so that's good. I don't know if anybody else has any issues that were hanging out there. I know, Lawrence, we had talked a little bit about, you know, some other data questions that we asked you. I don't know if you have any input on that. I don't know if Anne Marie or anybody has anything that we kind of left hanging before we get into the meat of this meeting. Nobody?
I don't think I have anything new, Mike.
Okay,
That I haven't already shared.
perfect.
Yeah, I'm good too, Mike.
Okay. Kate, okay, so what I want to mention is we, at the last minutes, if you review the minutes, look at the minutes, we have a complete list of, and not limited, it could grow, but a complete list of things that we think this long-term care campus that we're calling it should include as the beginning of the process. We did suggest that we knew we needed to think about how we were going to organize the effort and move forward towards an RFP. You know, to that, I want to respond. I want to offer some interesting thing, and perhaps Chairwoman Benelli, who's here, could help me with this or jump in. But I had a meeting with Chairwoman Benelli a week ago or so, and raised the point that we are pretty much at a level where it's time for us to move forward with some action and see what's yielded here. Namely, should we begin an RFP on this process? And my point was, if the backing of the county legislature and the county exec's office is not behind what we're talking about, it's time we should know that now, so we don't proceed and waste our energy. And if there's ways we can adapt to something new, we should do that. So that was the first point. So I asked her that question. And I don't know, Katie, you're there. I don't hate to throw this thing at you without telling you in advance, but if you could share with us any of your thoughts on that. I know what she told me was that her feeling was that this was the right project to move forward with, and that we should be thinking about a way to go with an RFP. I spoke to Langdon Chapman when he, from his perspective as when he was a county attorney, and put together the RFP for Valley View. not, excuse me, Valley for Camp LaGuardia. And he talked about some interesting ideas where you gave the developer a creative opportunity to tell you how they would like to do something and meet what you're looking for. And as he said, keep it simple. And the county, as I understand, they're pretty happy with the responses they got from the RFPs. And with that, I shared that point with Chairwoman Bonelli. And we were able to have a conversation with County Executive Newhouse, who also heard the same pieces. And he affirmed that he thought it was a good idea to move forward. So I think at this point, we're sitting with the county legislature and the county exec's office saying, okay, let's move forward with something and see if we can't get to where we want to go. And if you remember, I think it was Dan Bloomer really emphasized with us the need for a public-private relation idea where the public works with us, and it's not just something that the county bills as another big project that turns into a huge bill, but one that we develop together with a private partner and maybe other public agencies. Who knows what will come out of it? And we all know that what we were looking for is not at this point a comprehensive master plan, but really a comprehensive conceptual plan, so that we can really wrap our arms around, is this really what we think we want? So given the advice that Langdon had given me on that, I thought, well, then how do we proceed? And I think that if I can give it a nutshell, and I want a reaction, I'm giving you the idea, is that if we could craft the right RFP that invites individual businesses, corporations, whatever, whomever, developers, to come forward and say they would like to help us develop this concept. And in so doing, we would ask them to take our input and to give us a draft or a beginning conceptual plan. And based on that response, we would likely then be able to move forward with the next phase where we take them to the next level and really say, okay, how can we really do this? And pick the person or the entity that we think would be able to work with us. I think, as Langdon said, it doesn't preclude selling all the land. It doesn't preclude leasing it. Anything's on the table. Let's hear what somebody has in mind, as long as it fits our needs. And then you hit the legal end of it, where you have to develop the contract to make sure whoever gets it follows the needs that we've laid out here and does them in the way we want them. It's not totally a private job. It's a partnership. And so we'll have to think hard about how do we do that. Do we need some type of a not-for-profit corporation that might oversee this? Do we need a steering committee of the government? Do we need something? I'm not sure, so I'm open for ideas. And so having said that, I think the next step is that, I know Megan and I talked, she's off for the next couple of weeks. And she and I talked about, when she got back, sitting down and trying to put together the draft of a plan that might get from the developer or from a business entity some idea. And I don't have any ideas specifically, but I can imagine that somebody who wished to build, let's say, condos, and saw this as an opportunity to build and sell condos for people above 55 or something, could see as an opportunity, if they had that opportunity, to then help us do everything else that we thought was needed on the property and find it a benefit to them as well. Maybe not. You may find somebody that wants to do one component that we have and feels that they can work with us to find other partners to join them. That could be another model. So anyway, that's where I'd go, and I'd like to open it up. And Katie, I see you joined me. I kind of spoke for you a little bit while you weren't, when you left the room, that I talked about Langdon's idea of a simple RFP that solicited a conceptual plan, of which then we would select the kind of person, company, entity that we want to work with, and see what somebody said. If we had 3 different plans, as long as they followed what we offered, we wouldn't really be getting into the point of putting a dollar value on it or all the details. Just sort of get their idea and see where it takes us. And I know you mentioned you talked to County Exec Newhouse about that. And I wanted to fill him in. So could you address that question for me?
That's the reason I had to step away, as the county executive did come in the room, and I had to go handle something else with him. So yes, I mean, as far as I do support the concept, I know you and I spoke about it, and evidently you did brief the committee. I think we're at a point right now where we've taken our experts, we've put them around the table, we've ascertained from them exactly the types of points and what we're type of looking for. And now doing some type of a request for quote or something like that, we would get from the people that implement facilities such as this, the types of facilities we're looking for. So it's kind of a way of expanding the brain trust, so to speak. And I do support moving ahead with what your idea was, that I believe you had a conversation with the former county attorney.
Okay, yeah, I think, so, and I think we kind of talked about it. So what I'd like to have you do with me now is take this germ of an idea that we put out of getting an RFP that solicits somebody to come in and give us a preliminary idea of what the concept should look like, and in a way that we can look at it and say, they really get what we want. Let's invite them to go to the next step with us. And that's what our job. They really get what we've been talking about for the last 2 years. Let's ask them to move forward on this. And at that point, I think the numbers would come out. The idea of financing would come out. The idea of ownership or lease of the land would come out. All those things would have to work through. So I kind of want to get your collective opinion. And I'm saying that because I cannot see supporting an RFP that's based on all our hard work without your buy-in to it. I really want you guys to say, yeah, that could work, or no, you got to be careful in this area, or make sure you emphasize this. Whatever thoughts you have, I got my pen out and I'm ready to write them down. So I'll listen to you guys. So anybody want to jump in and the concept of, and I'm thinking that, that we could probably put together the RFP in the next 30 to 60 days, that all our conditions, and we could be agreeing upon it. Maybe we'd be lucky enough to get some of the responses in by the end of the summer, so that we could perhaps move forward in a selection of somebody we think would be good if we find anybody. And with the hope, fingers all crossed, that maybe by the end of the year, we would have a sense, this is where we could go with this thing. And at that point, we would know what the costs were, if we can even afford it, whether we want to do it. Or I think as Chairwoman Benelli said to us one time, when can you phase it? Maybe you can't do it all at once. It's too big of a project. You have to take it into pieces. It's a good idea, but take, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and over a period of time, but that's the way to do it. So anyway, just kind of interested in, anybody want to jump in and mention it? Mike Paducas, I've been interested in this. Maybe you want to offer your thoughts, or what do you think?
Michael, I'd give a couple points here. This idea, I think, is fantastic, to get some sort of outside consultant in here to kind of give some ideas on it. As you may remember, we hired a consultant for the medical examiner's facility to do a needs assessment prior to us actually going through the process of actually getting an architect in there. And it really gave us some insight as to the questions that needed to be asked, and the interviews that needed to happen, and the people who I guess would have been had buy-in to that. So they, as a professional company, they went out there, they took away some of the biases that we all would have coming through with some of our ideas, and they looked at it from strictly professional angle, and the property and the potential needs that could have there. So I think it's a great idea to bring in an architect to actually get a needs assessment out there. It's a little bit different, this aspect of it, because we don't really know, what we want the property to be used for. We definitely knew that we wanted a medical examiner's office, and we knew that, they had certain needs there. So they had a certain set of questions that they had to ask and to go out there with. This is a little bit different, but similar in the aspect that they could also bring in consultants that have done this type of work before also, and kind of research the property that you have there. So I think it's a process that needs to happen. And I'm definitely all for it. It was very valuable to us to at least get things off the ground, and to have somebody who could coordinate our efforts and be part of the team, like you said, to come up with the questions that need to be answered.
Chris, do you think that given this model, we were more likely get someone who says, I can do a complete need assessment, but here's what I want to charge you to do that? Or do you think we would get somebody that would say, here's how I think it should be done? Let's talk about how we pay for it. How do you think? I don't know. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to put that part out to wherever it's going to be, out to bid or whatever, how that works there. It's like, here's the certain bullet points we want covered, right? And, what's it going to cost for you to give us that information? And that's basically how we did it. It's like these are the things that we're interested in knowing. And again, Stacy's on here, so Stacy can definitely build that much better and talk about that much better than I can. But that's basically how you're doing it. It's like, this is the type of stuff we want to see in a report. These are the types of things that we need to see covered. What's it going to cost us?
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts? Lawrence? Oh, I see your hand up. I'm sorry, Lawrence.
That's okay. I was looking for the raise hand button. I couldn't find it for a minute. I agree with Chris. I think we have to have some type of a needs assessment. I think, we talked about in the past, or I know at least I have talked about the desire to potentially build, new beds and replace old beds. And a needs assessment could help us decide how many, beds. What would be the desirable number of beds, first of all, for Valley View Nursing Home in our current state, given our current staffing, based on the needs of the county, so on and so forth. And I think if we do decide to move ahead in the future and build a new portion of Valley View, depending on how many beds it is, that's gonna then lead us to step 2, and then which will lead us to step 3, which will lead us to step 4, so on and so forth. So I kind of agree with the assessment piece, because I think that's going to lay the template for how we're going to move forward. And it's going to, that's how I see it, at least. Because in my mind, if we want to modernize Valley View, we really need to build a building with new beds. It doesn't have to be 360 beds. It could be, like I said, we can have an assessment done and say, maybe right now our census is right around 250. Maybe we're a 240 bed facility in the future. So we would need to figure out how we build 120 new beds. And then when that's done, then we would have the whole Kaiser building or whatever else we decide that we could potentially lease. And like I said, that'll lead us to the next step and the next step going forward. So I do agree, Chris. I think it starts with a needs assessment, some type of an assessment.
And just to clarify that, I just pulled up a needs assessment that we had for the medical examiner's office. And part of the scopes of services of that are, research and interviews, evaluation and validation of findings. So, part of that is address functional use in space, projected growth of area, emerging technology, developing of square footage requirements. These are just baseline type of things that you'd want to see in there, and preparation of a draft report is in there. And that was a RFQ, request for quotations. So I will never, till the day I leave here, I will never get the difference between RFP, RFA, RFQ, RFB. It's like, even when I think I learn it and I understand it, I still get it wrong. So.
Well, since I guess Lawrence put Stacy on the hot seat that she knows all about this. What's the difference between an RFP and an RFQ? Or whatever you'd say.
It depends on the situation. I mean, there's, because of New York state law and the requirements that we have certain certifications and paperwork, there starts to become very little difference between them. The request for quotes you can sort of do by email versus an RFP is typically a more formal process, but they require a lot of the same things from the offerers. And then there's value levels in our procurement policy or thresholds.
I mean, do you think that for what we're trying to accomplish here, the streamlined RFQ versus an RFP would be better or not?
For professional services, if it's gonna be in the neighborhood of $25,000 and up, you're gonna at least need an RFQ. If it may go over $100,000, you need an RFP. So that's gonna depend sort of the nature of the services that we'll want this person to perform. I think right now you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lawrence, I think there's a pot of funding for a facility evaluation and 6-year plan. And then one for and I don't know if that ever hit the budget, the approval to use the ARPA funds for the sewer plant evaluation. So that's potentially 2 separate RFPs
Correct.
that you would have. For the facility evaluation and 6-year plan, if it's just the facility itself and maybe the Perry building. I don't know if that'll go over $100,000. If you want to sort of keep this person on board and as like a long-term project manager for, development of surrounding lands, if you wanted to do like a highest and best use evaluation, that could start to really ratchet up the cost for that. And I don't know what was in that budget line for the facility evaluation and 6-year plan.
I don't think it was that high.
No.
Actually, no, it's higher than I thought it was. It was 172. 172, 500, 500, 500. 172,500. So.
If you do the RFP, then you're safe. If it goes over, if it happens to go over $100,000, then you'll be good to go. If you do an RFQ and it gets close to that, then there's potential problem.
One of the thoughts that came up when I spoke with Langton about it was, well, what if somebody wanted to buy the entire property from us and then develop it according to our needs, because they could see the profit that they could make, let's say by building a 50 condo unit that they would sell on the property, but then take care of all the other development that we wanted, because they could see it as a benefit to them. And we would be able to, set exactly what we're talking about in terms of remodeling Valley View or building the things that Anne Marie and the Office of the Aging are interested in. Maybe somebody would find it. I'm sure there's a whole lot of money to be made in somebody that had the opportunity to take a piece of that land and build something that they could really make a lot of money on, and as a result, help us do what we want to do. You think that's pie in the sky, or do you think that could work? I don't know.
That to me.
Just so we're clear, you're saying that the person the developer wouldn't buy Valley View, or they would?
No, they would buy Valley View. No. I think
They'd
they buy
buy
the land.
the land that's available to develop and to, gotcha. right.
Long-term care campus.
Yeah, I think that could work, certainly. I did have a brief conversation with Dan Heim from Leading Age, and he did talk about the importance, and forgive me if I didn't send you this information. If I didn't, I'll forward it to you. But the importance of us being a county-owned facility, having a third party person to, if they wanted to do an assisted living or an out, because there's something called let's see here, the settings rule that we're going to have to work out with the New York State Department of Health regarding Medicaid reimbursement on the campus. So we couldn't, and I think we ran into the Valley View ran into this previously under the Berger Commission. I think there was talks previously about attempting to do an assisted living under the county's purview, and I suspect this was the snag. You can't do it under the county's purview because of SSI and Medicaid funding. So that's and I guess this just reinforces the importance of a third party or a second or third party that's involved, specifically in whether it's condos or assisted living or affordable housing piece. especially if one of those is gonna involve Medicaid, or SSI.
Help me, when you said that, Lawrence, I dug back in my head and I remember something about that the thinking behind it is that once the county or government were to establish something and look for that kind of reimbursement, SSI or assisted living, there are other places like prisons where people could begin to say, well, I'm the same. It's a government entity. I'm here. I want to get reimbursement for something that's happening, and it would open the door to a lot. And I think I heard somebody say that one time. I'm aware I heard it. It was just, you don't want to go down that path. So that's why they denied it to the counties. But I don't know if that's true or not. But that's an interesting, because that would be an independent. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it just says, the information I have here, it says, briefly, the document, it briefly explains why the county can't operate an ALP and receive SSI/Medicaid funding.
Mhm.
So, I'll send that to everybody.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? I mean, I guess I was thinking that we'd send out the RFP, whatever, but still look for who wants to do this, because I think I'm looking for that public partnership, that we can get. So I'm not looking to say, come tell us how to do it. And inside baseball discussion, if you will, once you get down to trying to take this side of the project on and have the whole county pay for it or get behind it, you never can be sure if you're going to get the right support or the right votes to get it done halfway through or 3/4 of the way through. So the best way we could do it is we could get it done the way we want it done and have somebody else do it for us without, in a way, but then we're sure we're gonna get to the finish line quicker. That was my thought. And I thought that was Langdon's thought. Anne Marie?
I agree, Mike. I think a third person partnership is the way to go. Housing is a critical issue with older adults. And if you create this community where it's kind of all inclusive and there's also levels in chapters of people's lives. So you start with condos, and then maybe you need some care, and then you move into assisted facility, and then you move into the traditional nursing home. I think that's the way to do it. And I think you would have a great deal of support.
I think sometimes it's my bias. A lot of times, because we're in county government and we see so much around the Medicaid issue and around I would say, quote unquote, poverty issue, we forget that there are people that live in Orange County that can afford
Mhm.
to have a condo on a campus that their needs could be met, and might want that, and it's not available anywhere else.
Right,
But
right,
we shouldn't be precluded from doing that.
right.
Somebody may be a private pay, but they can afford it.
Mhm.
But all the other things we may be offering on the campus, they can't get anywhere else.
Right.
Some of your thoughts about the bistro,
Mhm.
or the one thing that I thought about, the welcoming center concept, where I don't know if I mentioned everybody at the last meeting. I was talking to Dr. Young at Orange County Community College, telling her about our project, and she immediately said, wow, it's a great opportunity for us to run classes for seniors. I hope you're going to have a lecture hall.
Yeah.
And it's something I hadn't thought about until she said it. Wow, you could have, that would be something that people want. I see a lot of it as I look around. I think Elaine McClung and I have talked to this off the line, is that we look for senior continued care communities where you can go and live, and what I know, I picked up a lot of them are showing up next to your campus that you went to school at, alumni. I just saw something I went to Purdue, in West Lafayette, Indiana, there's a senior housing complex going up. And the whole idea is that you go there, you live and you get to access all the lectures, all the sports, everything that was on the campus you want. And you got the alumni camaraderie.
Mhm.
And so being that they can afford it, but they want to be there for that reason. And I've seen it, I think, in other colleges, you may have seen it. So that's why I like that. Any other thoughts we have there? I mean, I want to proceed with this, and I think when Megan and I get working on it, we're going to be calling on each of you to kind of give us a little help in terms of the the kind of things we want to put into this process, because if we can get this thing kind of drafted up within the next 2 months, and kind of reviewed by us enough to keep, you know, my theory of writing has always been you write it once and edit it 5 times. You just have to keep working it down and working it down till you get the perfect project, perfect paper, or RFP it is. So, I mean, if we can get this thing started and kind of build it done. So I think that, any other thoughts? I mean, that you have that we might want to use to create the RFP?
Yeah, I have some, Michael, and
I-
this, I haven't said much, and I've been listening very clearly, and I think the plan sounds great. But I think there's one piece that's missing, and that piece is when Lawrence told us that he had contact, and I looked through my notes here and I can't find the name of the place, that they built sort of like a community campus who you were going to contact and have them come and talk with us, because are they using third-party providers? I mean, how did they do it? Which could help us a great deal. And we've never actually had the opportunity to listen to him or hear what his plan was or how they went about it. And I think that would be key for us right now, if we could hear how they went about it. So we would know if we're going in the right direction, maybe all the right ideas we have. Maybe they had the same ideas. Maybe they have senior housing by a third party in that plan. I don't know, but I'd love to see maybe a layout or some kind of design that they went with, which maybe we could recognize as well for Orange County. I mean, I'd be very interested in hearing that part too. I mean, I think all of our ideas are on track, but if someone who's already did it has that information that could help us, I think it's so important. And I really am missing that part in this meeting, because I know you were going to try. I don't know how busy that other gentleman is, but the fact is that it would be great for all of us to hear their views so that we know we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. Was that Wart, am I pronouncing that Wartburg? Is that we were talking about? Is that the name?
Yeah,
of
I
it?
reached out to Dan Heim from Leading Age, and he sent me names and other examples of places that have campus type communities with multiple services. Actually, one of the ones he sent me wasn't actually Wartburg, but the closest one was Brookmead in Rhinebeck. And I'll send all this information to you as well. I'm still I'm still waiting on actual contact information for these people as well, so I can actually reach out to them. But he did give me some names and some examples that are out there, and I'll send that to you.
And if you, Lawrence,
right after the meeting.
if you happen to talk to any one of them and they seem to be responding, let's invite him to come to our June meeting, Zoom,
Right.
Virtually, and just talk to us, because, it could be, and you could help me here, because if in my experience, the CCRCs are the most advanced models that I've seen, where it's a private, facility that covers all your needs from admission through, skilled. But it's not really totally like a campus where you can just kind of come in and get services and leave. It's sort of part, you have to be part of it. Pay up the upfront fee, live there, and you get all the advantages. But let's say somebody from Port Jervis wants to learn how to better plan something for their retirement. Where do they go? Well, Anne Marie's probably got something, but do we have something that allows people to not be part of it? So I'd be interested in seeing it, like Mike said, if somebody has taken the concept of not sort of an open system rather than just a closed system. I guess I want to say it. Most of them I've seen have been closed systems. You come in and get, you register, you come in, you join, you get a bed, you get an apartment, and everything in there is available to you. But is it available from people on the outside to come in and not often? And we're kind of talking about letting people sort of come in from the outside and learn about it, as well as being part of it in some way. Yeah, so if you hear somebody, let's try to get them on here, because let's get their input into this request. And I'm pushing on a little bit on the RFP or RFQ, because I think that, we've been doing this for 2 years. We'll have been finalizing a year by the end of this year, a third year. I think it's about time that we come to a decision about what can we do or can't do. And so, that's why I was hoping that we can get this thing moved along and maybe get some kind of green light kind of thought by the end of the year, so we know what we're going to be doing in 23.
Michael, what I would suggest too is maybe when Lawrence talks to them, maybe they have an RFP that they used, that we could maybe put something together from theirs and, you know, put our guidelines of what we're hoping to do and see how it fits in their RFP. Maybe maybe it'd be perfect, you know, I'm not sure, but it'd be interesting to find out, that's for sure.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll get that. Well, Lawrence, you send whatever you have over to us and I'll certainly follow up on, you and I can talk off record here and figure out which one of us I can make some calls, you can make some calls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, the CEO of Wartburg was included in this email. I didn't think he was, but he was. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different examples that he gave me of places that have campus type facilities. So
In New York State?
New York State, yeah.
Okay, good.
So, yeah.
Yeah, send them on. Let's maybe reach out to them and see if we can get them to come and talk to us about
Yeah.
what we're doing. Okay, good. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about? Bring up. Because whatever we can learn from that, we can certainly benefit by writing and adding it to the RFP. Oh, Stacy, I see your hand. Thank you.
I just want to caution, it sounds like we're potentially talking about multiple RFPs here, or possibly a task order based RFP. Right now you have the pot of funds for this facility evaluation and 6-year plan. And that would be one RFP, or at least one kind of scope of work to look at the current facility, maybe the highest and best use for the properties, that type of thing. Then there's all the sewer assessment as a separate one. But with the facility evaluation and 6-year plan, I don't know if that's bonded funds. I don't have the resolution available. You'd have to also look at the scope under that, whether you could use that to be able to also kind of offshoot into some kind of, we'll say like a project management partnership for potentially doing another RFP for sale or development of the property, sale, lease, development, whatever, what have you. So really the facility evaluation and needs assessment type of thing would be one scope of work. Some kind of partnership agreement would be another scope of work. You might be able to do that in one RFP as sort of task order phasing, but you will also have to check the bond resolution to make sure that's, if that's the intent for that funding, to make sure that would all be permissible under the resolution as is.
Well, yeah, I'm sure I appreciate your input, because when we get to that point, you can help us review that to make sure we say the right things. Like, you know, I mean, I in my mind, I really, you know, I wasn't, when you talk about the bond and Valley View, I never really thought about this as being changing much of Valley View. We were trying to building around it so it feeded Valley View, and so, you know, but maybe we have to, you know, carve it out, or maybe we have to talk about it differently. I don't know. You know, that's a good point. I wasn't thinking that. Yep.
Michael, let me just suggest something else too. We have tons of money. Let's look at it realistically. Why does it have to be bonding? I mean, we could do 3 separate RFPs and get the exact information we want and pay cash for it. It isn't like we don't have the money. And now is the time that if we're going to look to develop, maybe add these services to the county, that, hey, this is a great investment. We've been talking about it for years and we haven't done anything. So if the bonding restricts us, we can pay cash. I mean, that's how I see it. With $117 million in our undesignated fund balance, I think we have enough to do some RFPs, I would hope, you know, so maybe we can look at that avenue as well and see which is easier. That's how I would look at it. Katie, I don't know if you agree with me. I know you're very supportive of what we're trying to do here, but I mean, you'd have a lot of input in regards to where that money would come from. And I mean, we all just seen yesterday how much additional tax revenue we're getting every single month. It isn't like we don't have the money. So if we're really, really serious about promoting this, then let's spend the money we need to. That's how I look at it.
Chairman, if I might,
Please.
let's not get ahead of ourselves here. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, Mr. Paduk. Yes, I do totally support moving in this direction. But I don't want to get bogged down in things that we're not up to as of yet. I think that today's meeting and today's purposes was to get a consensus from this group to see if you were supportive of moving forward with moving ahead and getting the needs assessment, getting all of that in place versus us trying to do, you've done your due diligence. You've come up with a laundry list of things you'd like to see in there. And now, as Chris and Lauren spoke initially, now's the time to take that to the next step, I believe, and we do all of that. And then upon that, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, Michael, as far as the funding is concerned, but I don't think that we're there yet. I'd like to see us achieve the fact that I think there's legislators on these committees, for the 3 legislators to sit down with whoever has to put this proposal together. I believe, Stacy, you're going to be a huge component with all of that, as well as general services. And then we'll get input from everybody else and start putting something together that this group can possibly review, and maybe even as early as next month. So, I just want to clarify the steps. I also want to clarify that we're not talking about, when you're talking about selling property, we're not talking about anything that has to do with Valley View.
Absolutely.
About everything around Valley View that will enhance and basically feed into Valley View as far as residents that need that type of care. So I don't want that to be misconstrued if people get a soundbite from somebody that's saying that, and all of a sudden we're dealing with, oh, well, the county legislature is looking at selling Valley View again. That is not the intention. We're trying to develop the facility to actually enhance Valley View and give it the longevity that it actually needs. So all of your ideas have been phenomenal. And I think it's now time to, as what your goal was, Chairman, is to move forward with putting this RFP together. And I agree that when we get to the point where we have to look at funding, we have to take a careful look at it. And if we're in the position not to go for bonding, well, that could be an option. And I think that would be great.
And I think, and I agree with the step process that everybody's talked about. And I think I didn't think about it the same way that I heard today. So that's helped me modify my thinking. But Mike, I mean, we all know this, have been around the legislature for a while. Sometimes it's hard to get, it's to getting the yes on some of these decisions, especially when the number gets very big. And you can't get the votes to get it done, and you can't get the support. So it's a lot easier in my mind, from my experience, with this first phase that we're talking about, if we can get something that makes this request or this ask for money more concrete and more understandable to the average person who may not know a lot about long-term care, but boy, this makes sense. And yeah, it's going to cost this much money. Well, now it's a different ask. And so I'm not disagreeing with Mike, but I think this first phase is going to set us up to the point where we know how much we're going to have to ask for or bond and move forward on it. But I think this is the way to get there. And if we can get there by the fall and be knowing, hey, we're ready to decide what the final proposal request is going to be about, then I think we're moving forward and accomplishing something,
And don't get me wrong, I agree with you and the chairwoman. I 100%. I just get a little anxious sometimes when, we talk about stuff and we're still talking about stuff 2.5 years later. When the time is right, I agree. That's when we move. And if we're setting ourselves up for that right move, I'm all for that. I just don't want it to take forever, like a lot of government things always do.
Well, that's why we made you the official alter ego of this committee.
Yeah,
To
right.
keep us moving forward, because you're right. So you can get caught up in this stuff and forget, that you're not moving fast enough. And so thanks. I appreciate it. Keep kicking us in the shins. That's necessary.
I don't look at it like that. I'm just,
No, you know me. Come on, I'm just kidding you.
no, I know.
It's important to keep us moving because
Yeah.
it's easy to fall back and say, oh yeah, a new and better need will come up and we'll go to the back burner. No, let's
Right.
keep moving forward on it. Anybody else? I don't want to hold us beyond our need to talk about it. When we finish after this meeting, we'll begin working on some of these things and pulling together some thoughts on what the RFP should look like. And I'll get it, Megan and I'll begin to work on it and get it out to the right people for all of you to take a look at some stage and see if we can't have, as the chairman said, maybe by the June meeting, we'll have a real rough draft that we can start talking about, maybe it'll be July, but see where we can take it. Any other comments in closing that I mentioned or thought about? Okay. Thanks a lot for all your time, and we'll get working on this so we can move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Everybody.
Oh, I should have a
Right.
motion to adjourn, right? Anybody?
I'll move it.
Thanks. Okay, we're all in favor to adjourn. Bye.
Aye.